Hello again, it's Ken Utley of SIMS. During this video segment, we are going to be discussing the SIMS2 work order capabilities and how data entry, service, and the central station operators can go about getting the full potential of its features. Let's take some time now to understand this capability for all its versatility and functionality. The SIMS2 presents all personnels with several different methods of creating service work orders. Operators can accept calls, hit the F2 search key, enter in an account number from the customer, strike the F4 key, and begin entering a service work order. They may put the description that the subscriber is providing them on this service work order, along with whom it's reported by, who it's assigned to, if there is any known technician at that moment, a reference comment about that will appear in the management summary, a promise date, a time, a priority for this work order, whether it's a client error or not, and possibly whether it's billable at that time. The second method is from receiving. We're going to create a burglary event here and assume that this is received into the central station. The operator hits the enter key and pulls it down. At this point, they could be doing a premise verify first and engaging with a conversation with some personnel on site there. At this point in time, we may need to create a service call with an F4 key and begin entering in the, could be entering in a service comment, taking down the name of the customer, who they're speaking to, along with any particular descriptions. At this point in time, they could hit the F9 key, which would actually save it into the service work order pending list. They could print a service work order ticket with the F6 key, or this could be emailed directly to someone. The other method that can create a service work order is with a signal that comes into the traffic display that's identified as a service work order mnemonic, and we can set it up to autolog so it quickly generates that. Let's just try to work with this one for a moment. If I go to the SIMS2 main menu and I go to the event priority levels, I can come down here to the SRV mnemonic. That's a mnemonic that we set up in the default. It's a service request. Notice I've set it to autolog, but the masking is a W, which is the service work order masking. If any signal comes in that has the mnemonic SRV, we will autolog it, but at the same time, if we utilize the generate service call by signal option, it will automatically generate a service work order even though no operator action is required. We could desire to do this on low battery signals or other types of signals to where operator action isn't really required and we know that it's going to require a service call, such as possibly a missing alarm or a low battery on a wireless circuit, or any other kinds of panel type failures like that. Now we can do this. I've set this up so if I generate on Tequila Willie's a code 23, it's a low battery signal that generates the mnemonic SRV. Notice we set that up for the autolog, but it will have created a service work order automatically when we get over to that section of the program. Now, this shows you right here how an operator can generate a service work order, how they can print out tickets, email tickets if they want to, transfer them over to the service department by the F9 key, and actually create service work orders or get them to where they need to be. Now let's assume for a minute that we have the service department. For this, we're going to come to the traffic, come off the traffic display to the SIMSII main menu and go into the service work order menu. The service work order menu has several entries in here. First of all, the management work order summary will allow us, I'm going to mark all of these by the F9 and then the F10, and I can see visually to the screen all the different service work orders that I currently have. Now, I could have printed that into a print file or printed it on paper or faxed it or emailed it anywhere that I needed to. Now, once I have the summary, then I'm in a position to start to delve out service work orders to different people. Now, from this point in time, let's go to the complete and review service work order. This is the pending service display. You may have up to the number of accounts of pending service work orders at any given time, but only one is allowed per account, one active service work order per account. When they're completed, they will be written into history. The next service work order could be generated. There are lots of ways to update service work orders, add new comments to service work orders, but there can only be one active at any given time with the SIMS2. Now, let's say for a moment that I want to add comments. I can come in here and add comment regarding service work order. We still have the Alt F4 keys, which tell me the last 8 events. If it's of some value there, we can do the Alt F3, which gives me the operator's comments as they were written into the different events. I can do Alt F6 to get a history on what's been done on the account in reverse order. There are lots of the historical capabilities can be researched right within the service work order. Now, at this time, I've come in here, I've added a comment. Let's just say I'll come down here. This was reported by William Fenton. I may assign this to a technician, but let's just say for talking's sake, I've assigned it to Ken Utley. Customer owes money. Might want to put for a reference comment. I might promise this for tomorrow's date by midnight tomorrow night. We're going to give it a priority 3. At this point in time, we can decide whether we want to say it's a client error or not. We could decide or change it later on whether it's billable or not. And the F9 key will now update the pending service work order list. So the next time I go in there, I've made the changes in there and now they're readily available to see. Now also, I'm going to just take just a second and note that once I've created a service work order, if subsequent alarms or subsequent events take place or operators go into routine action mask, notice it'll identify that this account has a service work order active. This is for reduction of false alarms. This lets anyone know if we get a dispatchable event in that possibly it's got something to do with the service work order. At that point in time, I could hit the F4 key. It's going to tell me one already exists, and I can go review the service work order. This is the assistance to the operator to manage the work orders and manage the information from the work orders. Now, let's exit out of here and get back to where we were, which was the service work order menu. Now that I've figured out how to update and to work these service work orders, I've figured out that I can print out a management work order summary. Let's try to actually take a look at one of these service work orders. If I chose WSC, I'm going to print out a compatible alarm ticket. In this case, it's going to be from FiberTech here. I could print it out. I could bring it to the screen. And when I look at that, I've got one example up here that I can bring up here. This is an example of an AlarmSoft compatible work order ticket. This might be what you would print out for your technicians in the morning, or you may print them out for your people that talk to them on the phone, so that they can have the pertinent information about the account as well as and put them in a position where they can fill things in about what they have to do at the field, out in the field, as well as getting the customer to sign them off, print his name, pay them a certain money, provide check numbers, and so forth like that. We can use those service work orders tickets to manage. Now, after creating service work order tickets, there's going to come a time that we're going to have an opportunity to complete them. In this case, I'm just going to mark this one service work order here. I could, in fact, mark 2, strike the F10 key, and it will bring up the first one up to the screen. When I'm completed with it, the next one will come to the screen, and so forth. Let's say for a moment now, I'm going to complete the service work order, and I've filled in all my comments. I strike the F10 key. Now I've got a whole new set of dispositions that will say equipment was damaged here. I've now put myself, and I've completed that work order in Tequila Willie's, and I've now stepped to the next work order that I selected from my work order pending display. At this point in time, I can do something to this work order. If I make some additional comments and I just want to save it and don't complete it, the F9 key will let me update it, and I will step to the next one. In this case, that was the last one there. The other thing that's important to know is there is service history in here. I can ask for past work orders for Tequila Willie's. In this case, it's the one that I've just completed here, and so it's just now been completed. It came in at 2:59, but was finally completed at 3:07. Remember that Tequila Willie's has got an offset of 2 hours on his local time, which would explain why this is actually 15:07 to compare to the clock there. But we've created this work order history here. Now, this work order history will not show up on the all events detail. These are separate histories, even though they're combined in the same file. But there may be many times you'll want to go back and review the service work order history if you're dealing with a new work order or you've had multiple work orders within some period of time. I would like to stop by one more thing and let you know you can also generate service work orders from this same display. That's very self-explanatory. And let's look just for a second on the pending work order display. The pending work order display shows all the current work orders. Notice that it can be sorted in name order, so it will present itself in alphabetical order. You can notice that you can set it up in priority order. So the oldest, the highest priorities go to the top. You may put it in group order with the F7 key. And finally, in date order or promise date order with the F8 key. If you want to toggle a single one, it's the space bar. If you want to toggle all, it's the F9 key. Many times when you go into the pending service work order and you're working all those work orders, you may mark them all and just strike F1 and step through it. In this case, if I mark them all, I hit the F10 key, and I don't want this one, I can easily move to the next with the escape key, will just simply move me to the next. And I can step through them all. Now, there is one more section that we must talk about in order to give a complete understanding of the service work orders, and that is the ability to generate scheduled service. In order to understand this concept, we're going to have to go inside of account maintenance. I'll pick Tequila Willie's here, and we'll step over to the account mailing, service, and charges page. Now notice, if I come down to this section, schedule service, I could easily put this as the 1st of January of this year. And so what it's telling me is I've said every, well, let's just really make this, let's say that every year I make a scheduled service call. And I can start that on the 1st, but I think it's probably unrealistic. Let's start it on the 15th. And notice 365 days later, it's telling me on January 14th of next year, we're going to have to generate some sort of a service call for this. This could be a fire inspection, it could be a panel inspection, it could be anything like that. I also had the ability to identify service areas. By identifying service areas, I can sort on these and get only the calls that are necessary, or generate only the calls for certain service areas. Now, let's just save this information, and although I can't give you a direct demonstration right now of the way this works, if you can imagine that, well, I'm going to do something just a little bit different. Let's say it's, oops, excuse me. Let's say it's 33 days later from now. That's right. 33 days later would take me into March from January 15th. Now, let's just assume it's January or March 21st right now. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And what I have the ability to do now is generate service as of 03/22/04. I can come down here and put all kinds of sorting criteria, which it would include that service area, but I'm just going to say it's for Tequila Willie's. I have now generated a service call for Tequila Willie's automatically based on that account number. Could have been service area. I could have done it from that direction. But because I set my date as the 22nd of March, on the 21st of March one was due, so I can set those dates any way I want to, so I can do it ahead of time to create service calls for next week and so forth like that. So now if I take a look at my service work orders, just so happens Tequila Willie's went right to the top. It's a priority 9. It's a scheduled service call, and it identifies it as scheduled service. And at this point in time, I know the reference comments is scheduled service, and I can get in there and start organizing my service calls for whatever area I want to send to. Okay, this is Ken Utley, and I'd like to thank you for the time and thank you for your attention on this. I hope this video has been beneficial to help you begin to understand the capabilities of the service work orders within the SIMS 2.